They tell legends of Mars long ago. A fine and noble race built an empire out of snow. The Ice Warriors. And every little Time Lord knows you never go to Mars and play in the snow. So let's go there today on Voices from the Vortex.
Broadcast amplitude at maximum capacity. Transmitting through time and space in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Vortex.
Voices from the Vortex reviews Doctor Who Series 10, Episode 9, Empress of Mars.
Howdy there, Voices from the Vortex fans. This is Matt.
And this is Taylor. This is Taylor.
Hey guys, first off, welcome back to another mighty review from Voices for the Vortex of Doctor Who Series 10. This is exciting because this is the Gatiss episode that we finally got to.
Yes.
And a really good Gatiss episode.
Yes, definitely. If you listen to the last episode, you know that Matt and I, we love Mark Gatiss, but sometimes it's kind of hit or miss. This was definitely a hit.
It might have been his best hit. We'll go into that here in just a minute. We'll get to it here by the end, I'm sure. But
yes.
I do want to say, too, in case any of you haven't already, if you're listening to this, get ready, because we've got Voices from the Vortex, our narrative podcast, coming out very shortly this year, which will have some Ice Warriors in it. Bill Skaldeck, to be precise.
To be exact.
To be exact. So, no, we are huge fans of the Ice Warriors over here ever since we both watched the Troughton episodes at the minute, and
yes.
This is great. Man, watching the episode, it felt like classic Who meets New Who.
I was going to say that. This, if you'll excuse the expression, this episode was classic Who AF, okay? This was so, just in its tone and stylistically, it felt very classic Who. And, sometimes you think, well, it's New Who, it needs to be more exciting. But no, this was not, there was nothing that the classicness about it didn't bring it down at all.
Right.
I thought it was fantastic.
Absolutely. So we'll dive in here. First and foremost, this was an Ice Warriors story.
Yeah, and that's great. And I haven't seen an Ice Warriors story that I don't like. They've, the classic Who stuff is great, and then the new Who. We've only had the two really. We've had Cold War, and then this, and they're fantastic. I love them. They
really are, and I'll tell you one of the things. Really about New Who, that one of the big the sad things about New Who is that there are so many good classic monsters we don't see in New Who, because they're kind of silly. Sometimes it's a little silly to have maybe the Macra, or a little silly to have the characters that were just rubber suits. But we get in this.
Wait, are you calling the Candyman silly?
You should be frightened of the Candyman.
I'm very frightened. I really wish he'd make a return. I want to see what they do with that. Come on, Chibs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll leave it to the Chibs. I feel like classic monsters. Obviously, you're gonna get Daleks. Obviously, you're gonna get Cybermen. Those were kind of a given from day one that we all kind of knew was happening. The Autons were a little cheesy out of nowhere for the first episode, but realistically, you didn't have a lot of classic monsters in New Who for the first two seasons that weren't Daleks and Cybermen. You didn't really get classic monsters until you got to season 3. We got to see sort of an iteration of the Macra, and then we obviously got the Master. So with the Ice Warriors, because they weren't around for Doctors 4, 5, 6, and 7, or 8, because the Ice Warriors were almost completely restricted to Troughton, the second Doctor, and then they showed up a little bit with Pertwee, which we'll get into in a minute too. They're very mysterious. You don't know much about them unless you've watched the classic Who. So for me, it was really exciting not just to see one Ice Warrior, not just to see two Ice Warriors, but to see a whole army of them. And to go, yes, this is the army, the monsters that the Doctor fears. And when he talks about the Martians, when he talks about the Ice Warriors, there's a little bit of fear in his voice, and has been leading all the way up to this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely hear that fear in Capaldi. He knows that even just the slightest misstep by these British soldiers, he's like, no, let me handle this. Let me talk to them. And
Right.
I'm glad that Mark Gatiss has taken the helm on these Ice Warrior stories. If you look back to Cold War, you're right. Matt Smith was like, as soon as he heard it was Skaldak, which that's where we got Bill Skaldak. But when he heard that the guy's name was Skaldak, he was like, oh no, he's a general. He's one of the most feared, So they've done a really good job of making these monsters as silly as they look. I mean, they call them upright crocodiles at one point.
That's racist. But continue.
But these monsters look silly, but they've made them scary. Just like the Daleks. The Daleks look super silly. They look like salt pepper shakers, but they're really, really scary because of their attitudes and the power that they have. So the Ice Warriors are fantastic. Yeah.
It's a good reminder, too. Classic Who never really talked about what an Ice Warrior was, other than we kind of got a little bit of backstory that they were Martians. The fact that in New Who, that's not their skin, that's body armor. And that's a revelation, because all of a sudden then you don't know what's inside that suit. And I think that's even scarier. And I like the idea that a naked Ice Warrior, so to speak, like Skaldak was in Cold War, that a naked Ice Warrior is even more deadly because he doesn't have this battle armor, this tank that he's driving, basically.
Right.
And I really like that idea. So this was a sort of an Ice Warrior nerd out of an episode, because you finally got to really get to the core of these frightening monsters from the past. But I'd also like to point out, this was an episode, once again, we've been saying this all season, how political has this season been? They have been facing racism, girl power. They're facing the ideas of bigotry and hatred in a way that only the Doctor can. So, like Upright Crocodiles, super racist. Or when the one guy laughs at her saying, "A woman in the police force," that's sexist.
Right.
And even the idea that the Empress herself would bow to the opinion of another woman over all the men, that's super girl power. Like, this is a super political season. I'm wondering if, obviously it's intentional, but I'm wondering why it's so intentional. Like,
right. Well, I read somewhere that this episode was almost about Brexit. That Mark Gatiss was almost going to kind of have some parallels to Brexit, but then in the end they decided to kind of cut that out. But
yeah.
But you're right. This has been really political. I like the line when she was like, she wanted to talk to Bill. She wanted, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Oh, me?" And she goes, "We're surrounded by lots of noisy males." That was just so perfect. Yeah.
Well, and listen, it's a great statement from Britain. A lot of the season has felt like a statement on America, and obviously electing Donald Trump to preside over us. With the massive insurgence of hate and venom from white supremacists and just white attitudes in our country, and this season feels like a bit of a reaction to that. And it's England saying, we're going to once again show you the face of prejudice and the face of hate and racism, and the Doctor will always fly above it because he's better than that, and the people who are with him are better than that. And I love that. I love how political this season really has been, how topical it's been.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I really love this story, this plot. So you have the Ice Warrior, the one Ice Warrior, who they call Friday as a reference to Robinson Crusoe, that brings this troop, this British army, battalion or whatever, brings them back to Mars, sort of as a trick. He tells them, "Oh yeah, there's lots of riches on the planet," and so then they mine it out. And they end up, opening up the Ice Warrior hive. I thought it was funny that it was a hive of them, and then they get into a skirmish with the Ice Warriors, and the Doctor sort of has this dilemma. He says, on the one hand, I know the Ice Warriors can be quite deadly and quite, rash, but on the other hand, the humans are kind of the invading force here. So it was hard for him to pick sides in this, and eventually he had to work with both of them to get them to both work together. So I really liked where this episode went.
Absolutely. Well, Capaldi has continued to show us a Doctor who does not put humans first. While other Doctors may have, and just constantly assume that the humans needed his help, Capaldi the 12 has been very much so about looking at it objectively, and even from season 8, how they wrote him, that it's not his moon, it's not his world. Why should he be the one to decide whether or not the moon dragon lives or dies? That's up to the humans. We saw earlier in this season in Smile that he says, look, humans are here, that's fine, but you created another race, you created these nanobots, now you got to live with that. It's their planet, not yours. They were here first, and it's a good reminder that the Doctor's looking out for everybody, not just who us as the viewer thinks he should be looking out for. And that does kind of make him a little mysterious and a little scary, but it's because it's the Doctor judging who's right and who is wrong. And that was the season 8 storyline completely for the Doctor. His through line from his first season as Capaldi,
right.
Was about who's right and who's wrong, and he gets to be the judge. I will say this is one of those episodes, you said it, before, the Our Man Friday. That's a very Victorian British attitude. Those who study it at all, Robinson Crusoe, and the idea of Friday. Crusoe himself was fairly racist, and that attitude that the Brits go across the world and civilize uncivilized characters, which in the story, of course, is African. But that's also its Victorian British attitude, that colonial mindset. Anywhere the British went, they planted their flag, regardless of who was there. And they said, no, this is our world now. You live under our rule. And, we hear that repeated in some of the lines from the episode. So I like the idea that you have this definitively British story, definitively British attitude from the Victorian era, where they were out to colonize the world. And then you have probably the most deadly of monsters the Doctor has ever faced, which is an army of Ice Warriors. And you're right. I loved where this one went. I love that 19th century lingo. Like, you'll have your share of the rhino. I'm like, okay, all right, settle down, guys. You proved it, Gatus. You're smarter than us all.
This was really well written. I can't say that enough. Mark Gatiss did a really good job with this. I didn't feel there were no parts of this episode or storylines of this episode that felt forced. Everything just naturally fell into place. It fit in, so well. I really liked the storyline with the general who, he defected and then he was hanged for treason, and then so he sort of had this redemption story. I really liked that. That was great. And I really liked the bit at the beginning with the message. At first I was kind of confused what happened. I was like, okay, so wait, did that happen later? Because then the Doctor makes the message. So I was like, right. Well, why did he go to NASA in the first place? I thought it was kind of strange that, let me just take Bill and Nardole to NASA for no reason, just for an outing.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a show where you just assume anywhere the Doctor goes, adventure is going to be there, and he doesn't mean to be there. But yeah, this was definitely a paradox. He does the mess. He helps them make the message in the end, which was centuries earlier.
It's a bootstrap paradox because he sees the message, and then he makes the message. Someone gave him the idea to make the message is himself making the message.
Doctor.
But I like the idea that he sees the message and he goes on the planet on the screen, and he goes, "I'm gonna have to do that, aren't I?" And so he goes, "That has me written all over it."
Yep. Well, I love the. I can't say it enough. I wish Capaldi would have 2 more seasons. I really do. I wish we could get 2 more seasons of Capaldi, because I am loving this Doctor. I am loving 12 like this.
Me too. I wish I don't know if I want 2 more, but I wish the first 2 had been like this. That's what I'll say.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking, sadly, the first 2 were not like this.
No.
So now, if this was his first season, I'd want 2 more.
Right.
But, hey, you know what? We live with what we got. And actually, going back and rewatching Season 8 and Season 9 with people who haven't seen them before, when you get to binge them and kind of know where it's headed anyway, they flow a lot better. And the episodes are much more fun to watch, especially when you kind of already know where it's going. I do want to point out 2 things for you. The first is this: we get a returning classic Doctor Who character.
Yes,
in Alpha Centauri.
I love Alpha Centauri. And did you know that was the actual voice actress?
Yep, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Alpha Centauri is from a 3rd Doctor story called The Monster of Peladon, where a planet called Peladon is looking to enter into a galactic federation that exists of aliens, and of the delegates that are sent, an Ice Warrior is sent.
Yeah.
Alpha Centauri is sent, and another race sent another delegate as well, and I sincerely do not remember who it was.
It was a robot. It was like a type of
with a brain in it.
It was a being in a big machine or something.
That's what it was. Yeah. That's right. And then of course Earth was supposed to send delegates, and it ends up the Doctor and Joe end up taking on that role.
Yeah.
Just
for Joe is the princess of Earth or something.
But I love, there was always that question of why were the Ice Warriors involved in that federation? Why were the Ice Warriors even there? Because the few times you'd seen them before, they were dead. They were dead race. It was just bits of them throughout the universe that survived, tiny little pockets.
Right.
So this really kind of ties that together. The idea that they used, they were in hibernation, and then they were woken up and they went out into the universe, and now this kind of sets the stage for a 3rd Doctor adventure. I think that's really neat. I love that continuity.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of continuity, and you earlier you said this was an Ice Warrior nerd out. Well, we could get really nerdy here and talk about the timeline of the Ice Warriors and their story. If we've only had the 3 Classic Who and then these 2 in New Who, mm-hmm. and so that sort of lets us go, okay, well, where does Cold War fall into this? Well, okay, it was later because it was in the 80s, and we know that.
Right.
But why was this one guy? It seems that you had the Hive, and they were hibernating mm-hmm. for like 5,000 years, and then you had these little, factions of Ice Warriors, or this one guy who had crashed somewhere, Friday, or you had the Skaldak who crashed, in the North Pole or the South Pole or whatever it was. So it was really interesting to see Alpha Centauri come in, and then definitely, connects those dots. Why in the Monster of Peladon, and I think ultimately there was the Curse of Peladon. I don't know if that's another one. Is that
there's two Peladons. I can't remember. I thought Monster was first and Curse was second. I'll have to look that up while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just know Alpha Centauri. I think she's in both. I don't know about the Ice Warriors.
She is, yes.
You're right. You see the Ice Warrior in sort of this, diplomatic, meeting with them, and you're like, why are the Ice Warriors doing this? Way before I've seen them, they've just been, trying to kill anything that moves, basically. And this is the explanation, and I think that's great. That Mark Gatiss is like, it's like a 30-year plot hole that he finally decided to fill.
Right. And what have we been saying about Moffat all this time? Moffat likes to go back and find bits of canon that don't exist and write them as if they always existed. He's so good. He did that with the War Doctor. He did that, with the idea that all the Doctors save Gallifrey. And you're like the idea that Clara was there at the very beginning, and she convinces the Doctor to take the TARDIS he gets. He just goes in and he writes this sort of fan fiction of Doctor Who and makes it canon because he's running Doctor Who.
Fan non-fiction.
Fan non-fiction, as it were. By the way, Curse of Peladon was first. Curse of Peladon in his season 9, so the third season for Pertwee. And then, of course, Monster of Peladon's in the last season. And in fact, it's almost the last story. It's only beaten out by Planet of Spiders. So that was I know, Taylor, you and I have not seen Monster of Peladon yet. But that is a Pertwee and Sarah Jane adventure. So that might be...
Okay.
That might be next. That might be, I think, what we go run into looking at next. Cause,
oh, yeah. Well, when I watched this... The one question I had about this episode that was just like as far as the plot goes, they had to have a reason they were stuck on Mars. So, right, Nardole gets in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS just disappears. And at first I thought, oh, this is another. They just used it's the HADs again, or whatever they're called. I don't remember what that stands for. But the HADs, where if there's a dangerous situation, the TARDIS disappears. But as you and I have been talking about this episode, there's really actually no explanation of why the TARDIS moves and goes away, but maybe there's a something that may be revealed later, or there's I don't know.
I have a theory on that one, and it's this: the TARDIS has shown in the last couple of seasons, last 4 or 5 seasons, that it will do things on its own, independently, if a timeline needs to be maintained. So, if you remember correctly, it had problems with Clara, because it knew what Clara was supposed to do with the Doctor, and it was purposefully trying to keep her from being involved with the Doctor, for whatever reason. But also, it took Clara back to Gallifrey, so Clara could be there to inspire the Doctor to go out on his own from the episode Listen. The TARDIS does things on its own. The TARDIS knew that the Doctor had to make that message. It was a bootstrap paradox. So maybe that's why it moved. Because every time Nardole tried to move it, it made that sound like it didn't want to go. Like when the Doctor took it to Trenzalore.
No!
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, and I this all goes back to that rant I've been doing for so many years now. The idea that it was the Kovarian chapter that moved the TARDIS to the date of Amy's wedding so it would blow up. Mm-hmm. They took control of it somehow. And in this particular episode, someone takes control of the TARDIS. I would not be surprised if we come to learn it was missing. I would not be surprised.
Right.
But it all kind of feeds into that. Moffat doesn't like to give us clues to anything. He likes to give us these really interesting mysteries, and he's like, screw it, let them figure it out on their own. Well, we don't know what you're trying to tell us. We don't understand Moffat. So if this is something that you're going to reveal later in the season, fine. That's what it is. But if this is just one of those things, like who was Prisoner Zero, then, the least you could do is do an interview in Doctor Who magazine and explain what you were trying to do. Because sometimes Moffat will come up with these ideas and never bore them out, never explain what they were meant to be, and it bothers me because he's a far better writer than that. Anyway, so this could be a scenario where we're supposed to interpret what happened. And if that's true, I think that's kind of cheap. We can do better, right? Mm-hmm. We can do a lot better than that, but whatever. Anyway, could have been missing. Could have been missing. That's what I'm trying to get to.
It could have been. This could have been a plot by her to sort of get out of the vault.
Right.
So yeah, that's... Well, we'll talk about that here later.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, now, I feel like this episode in particular had a lot of character development, too.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. I like the way Bill handled herself in this episode. She's definitely not. She's not very frightened anymore.
Right.
You know, you saw in Smile and what was the Thin Ice. You know, she's really like hesitant about and jumping into these adventures. And this one, she just jumped right in. You know, there was no hesitation on her part. She just was right in there.
Right. When you look back on the last 3 episodes, the last few stories that she's done, she was to blame for the world being the way it was with the monks. And, she feels Capaldi, the Doctor, forgives her because she's special, because she's 1 in a billion,
Mm-hmm.
And I think she finally accepts that, where at first she kept questioning the Doctor's motives. And it's very human to do that. He'd say something and she'd say, well, who made you the one who decides who lives and dies? And, why do you get to make these decisions? Thin Ice was a big one for that, and Smile. And she didn't understand him. And then by the time you get to Knock Knock, I think you get that moment sort of in the middle of there where she is telling him, please just go. Like, I don't want you here. I don't understand what you're doing. But then you get the stuff with the monks, and you really come to understand, or that she comes to understand the relationship better. I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
Which he has the line, he says, I need a distraction. And she says, you have one. She has signed on.
Right. Well, and I love... I know they kind of do it for exposition, but I like the fact that they kind of are having a conversation to themselves about what's going on, and Bill's kind of like reciting what she knows to him. She's saying, okay, so this isn't normal that their British Army's here. And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, and they're the Ice Warriors, and they're, so it's like, she's definitely, it's that teacher-student relationship. And I really like that. I like seeing her learn what it's like to be with the Doctor and to do what he does, and just learning about the universe. I think that's cool. So I like what they're doing with Bill. And I mean, I have no qualms with her. I think she's great.
The Doctor classically has always had just like 2 or 3 different kinds of companions. One was always a companion who the Doctor had to teach. They were the student. We look at Joe, obviously, with the 3rd Doctor. When we look at Adric with the 4th and the 5th Doctor, and then even when you look at like for those of you who do Classic Who, Ace in a sort of way with the 7th Doctor. So she was kind of her own person. But then conversely, he always has a companion that is incredibly thick-headed or strong-willed. It's the what's her name? The first one for Pertwee. Help me out here, Taylor.
Oh, Liz Shaw.
Liz Shaw, thank you. It's the Liz Shaw or the Sarah Jane Smith or the Romana or
Donna.
Tegan, and Ace in a lot of ways. So he always seems to go back and forth between this adversarial relationship where he's trying to open their mind, or a teacher's student relationship where he's trying to teach them and open their mind. And I love when he's the teacher, and I love Bill being the student, and I'm hoping she survives the season. I'd like her to be in the next season. But then also I'd like to, if she isn't, I'd like to see this again. I want to see another person that the Doctor can train and teach, about the universe.
Yeah, I agree for sure. The last thing about the characters in this episode was the bad guy he was so bad. Like, and I don't mean bad as in like they didn't do a good job. He was so good at being bad. Like, right. I hated this guy. I hated him so much. Yeah. His motivation's just like selfish and greedy, and the actor who played him was a fantastic job. So just applause for that for sure.
Well, and once again, one of his first lines is he's asking he's asking Bill, "All right, China or India?" You know, like where
Yeah.
and of course it's tea, but that's not how she takes it. And it's like,
Right.
oh, this guy is super super condescending and racist. He's Victorian British, and like
Yeah.
you just sort of take a step back and you're like, this is who this guy's gonna be, and the whole episode bores that out. When he gets shot, it is I clapped. I was so happy.
Oh yeah, I was like, great. Well, and I like that he got shot by the other guy. I think that was the perfect. Like, I didn't just want him to die by crumple gun. I wanted him to. I wanted him to
Crumple gun.
get what he get what he was what he deserved, and
Yeah.
him getting shot by the other guy. He also has that emotional aspect to it. So yeah, that what they did with the bad guy and all the other characters in this, just great stuff.
So the season arc, which is clearly now defined as Missy in the vault and Missy reforming, so she's out of the vault.
She's out. She's
She's
escaped.
out. And the question is, could she be reformed? Her attitudes and her responses were very, they at least they appeared very honest and very very kind to the doctor.
Mm-hmm. Which was weird. And I think that's what they were going for. That it was so weird. And the doctor's just like, whoa. Like, you're asking if I'm okay? What's going on?
Right.
Yeah. I that stare down at the end, that was intense. I don't know what's going on there. I feel like there's something they're not telling us. I feel like he's not just freaked out that she's out of the vault.
Right.
I think that's part of it, but I think there's something more, and maybe it's just they haven't told us yet, but something about her being out of the vault, I don't know, just the way he reacted. He said, you can't do this. This isn't what we discussed. I feel like there's maybe more to this oath, or again, they have this plan together of something they're supposed to be doing, and she's mucking it up, and we don't know what that is yet, but that, to me, that ending there, I feel like there's something that they haven't quite told us yet about the reasons.
Yeah, and it also and that's one interpretation, certainly. I think you and I hadn't thought about that. That's actually a very interesting idea. And it's a good point. When I saw that, all I imagined was he was shocked when she asked if he was okay. That was the thing. And I felt like everything after that, especially that stare down, is just him thinking, is this for real? Is she really reformed? Is she really caring about other people? That's just how I read it. But again, why did the TARDIS return to Earth? Are we going to find out in the last episode and she's all of a sudden, I was evil the whole time, and I brought the TARDIS to Earth with an Ardal so I could escape the vault. Right. I don't trust it. The thing with Davros in season 9 has proven that Moffat will never reform a villain for the obvious reason they're too good as villains.
Yeah, why would you?
So I just won't trust it. But watch us get to the end, and it turns out she really was good, and she really did reform, and maybe that's why John Sims is there. She's trying to reform an earlier version so she could have had more adventures with the Doctor, and then something happens where she supposedly dies and she regenerates as well, and whoever's the next regeneration ends up being crazy and evil again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and based on what happens at the end of the season between her and the Doctor, maybe she feels betrayed, and so then she vows, "I'll get you, Doctor,"
That's the last thing I do.
Yeah, if that's the last thing I do, yeah. So maybe that'll be what happens. That'll be what turns her back. So
right,
yeah.
Guys, the production of this episode was top notch, even though 99% of it took place in a cave.
I loved how this episode looked. Looking at the trailer, I thought, this is gonna be really cheesy and like really bad. But I loved it. One thing I really loved was the Doctor and Bill's and Nardal's spacesuits. Those were new.
Yeah.
And I thought they were slick. I was like, they should be wearing those all the time. Those are cool.
I liked those spacesuits.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
I did too. Anytime they go out into space, that throw that old orange thing away. No, you need to be wearing these things. These things are great. I love the look.
Yes, and on top of that, you had futuristic Ice Warrior laser, giant cavernous laser thing. It's the old 1960s comic book villain builds a giant laser thing. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
and it's futuristic look, even though the futuristic look comes from 50 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing I mentioned earlier that I really liked was the crumple. I call them the crumple guns. Those things were crazy, and it was definitely new. We hadn't seen anything like that on Doctor Who before, and it continues with what I was saying a couple episodes ago. That I feel like this season is more gruesome than the past several seasons. I don't know, something about the whole person's body just being crumpled up into a ball just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know.
Yeah, it should. You're right. It's
you hear all the bones crying.
Right.
Right.
And then you have the 80s music, the very little 80s stings and stuff that take you from one scene to another, which I thought was just it was absolutely beautiful.
I love when they get that classic Who sort of feel in the music. I really like that stuff. I think it matches really well, and they've done it before in New Who. One example I can think of is what's the Doctor's Daughter with we're with Martha, and she goes out on the planet with the Hath, and that music that's like it's perfect.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
it was very classic Who, and I like that. I like that a lot. So yeah, production on this episode, top notch. This season has just been looked beautiful.
Yep. Hopefully we don't get let down at the end.
Right.
Hopefully it goes out. I
don't think we will.
I don't think we will either.
So what are some of your favorite moments or quotes from the episode?
I really liked the whole bit where she kept listing movies and he didn't know what she was talking about, and then he would be trapped in eternal winter, like Frozen. It's a movie. I was it snapped in his brain that he recognized that. I thought that was my favorite bit from the whole episode. I really liked that.
I like that too. Well, I loved the constant references, and but he doesn't get any of them, and that's been something ongoing with him specifically for a while.
I'm just thinking of the Last Christmas where he's like, there's a horror movie called Alien. No wonder they keep invading.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. He is so snarky. He is so. And you know what? A lot of people we know say that Eccleston was the sarcastic Doctor and the snarky Doctor, and he was the one that would always have the really just kind of mean-spirited comeback that made everybody else but the person who's getting it laugh. But Capaldi really does it. As an example, when he's I'll make allowances for your Victorian values because you are actually Victorian.
That was a great line. I like that. That was a good one.
Or was it, what's it like out there, Doctor? It's all quiet. It's tradition at this point to say too quiet. And he does this like yeesh face. like he's like, I know it's bad, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. I like that.
Or even, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, when he referenced, finally we get a reference that his screwdriver doesn't work on wood for this door. I thought knock knock would have been the perfect opportunity again, but right. they did it in this one. And I like that he said, why is there no setting for wood? Like it's not his responsibility to put it on there. like it's just whatever he gets from the TARDIS, that's what he gets. And he's like, why did they give me another one without a wood setting?
Yeah. Oh, like I said, he's got this snarky attitude that it makes you realize how much you want Capaldi to stay. And for those of you out there who like everything wrong with, the EWW series. When she says "Sleep no more, my warriors," and all in my head, all I can think of is roll credits. Oh wait, nope, wrong Gaddis episode. I love when they use the, and someone said the Empress of Mars, and I would be like, roll credits.
Yeah, they should have just said, this is a Cold War, Doctor. He should have put all the titles of his previous episodes in this
might
episode.
have. I gotta go back and watch all his first one is
No.
Dead.
I mean, in this episode, he should have put all his previous titles in there in the script somewhere. So he's like, "Oh, they're all sleeping, Doctor. They're like the unquiet dead." Robots of Sherwood. That might be the only one. That would be a little difficult. Maybe he's reading a book and it says Robots of Sherwood on the cover.
My ice warriors are no robots of Sherwood from your Earth. That's a forced metaphor. So hey, what are your final thoughts on this one?
My final thoughts are that this is Gaddis's best episode ever, in my opinion. Sure. I think he really knocked it out of the park with this one. He doesn't always knock it out of the park for me. In fact, it's either that or it's in the gutter. But this one I really, really liked. And this is probably my favorite Gaddis episode, and definitely probably one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes now. Favorite from the season, and one of my favorite of Capaldi's era. I think it's really, really good. It was silly, but yet it was engaging with the story, and it had the very classic Who feel. So I just felt it was a return to what makes Doctor Who great, and it was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, I share that sentiment entirely. Gaddis is an amazing storyteller. Even his bad episodes aren't that terrible. This is a great entry into the classic Doctor Who mythos. It is wonderful to see those Ice Warriors again, and I love that they're bringing them back into New Who. I sincerely hope we see more Ice Warriors going forward in the Chibs seasons. This is a delightful episode. I'll say that I think this is my favorite of this season. The pilot was obviously really great. Thin Ice was really great. Oxygen was really great. Extremis was really great. There's lots of great episodes, but I think this one stands above all the others as my favorite. And yeah, it is absolutely Gaddis's best episode.
Calculating. Voices from the Vortex gives Empress of Mars 10 out of 10.
It is time to do.
Yes.
Oh my god, that promo. Oh my god, the promo.
Oh my god, that promo. Guys.
Oh my god, the promo? That's my reaction to this. Oh my god, the promo? I have no idea what this episode's going to be about. Even after watching the promo, I was like, what?
We have no information about this episode whatsoever.
No.
All we've heard is that, obviously the writer, whose name is Rona, she was a classic Doctor Who writer. She wrote the very last episode of Doctor Who, the storyline, which is the Survival, and Rona Munro. And here we get what's called the Eaters of Light, and there is no information. There's nothing. There is, who knows what this is about? And you see this promo, and it's batshit crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's action packed. It's the Doctor running around, and we've got to stop this before something like that. And it's just like there's almost no information about what the monsters are. The only thing I really know is that it's a mystery that's been going on for a long time, and the Doctor's finally getting around to solving it or something, So again, no idea what this is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so this is it's exciting that we're going to get an episode that looks scary, that looks mysterious. B, I like that it's going to be written by a classic writer, the first classic writer to come back and write for Doctor Who. It's going to be
that sounds great
to see what they can do with New Who. And this is it. This is the last episode before we hit the finale. We'll have 2 episodes of the finale, obviously, episodes 11 and 12. And that's what we get. Then at Christmas, we will say goodbye to Capaldi. So, for me, for my money, the season has definitely been strong. This promo makes me very excited to see the last truly separate individual Capaldi story.
Well, and I'm glad just because I don't know what it's going to be about. I'll get to sit there and just be completely surprised and completely, unaware of anything that's going to happen in this episode. So,
yep,
it's great.
Yeah, you won't
know
the beats.
No, I won't. I won't at all.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us once again. We love having you here. We love having you join us. Please remember to go to our YouTube channel if you're listening to this on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, listen to it on YouTube, share it on Facebook. Go to our Facebook page, Voices from the Vortex, and like us and share our stuff. If you're listening
subscribe
to it
on iTunes.
Subscribe, yeah.
Yeah, and leave us a nice comment on the nice review in iTunes. That'll help us get more traction in the searches. Yeah. If you have more reviews. So, yeah.
And if you have any questions, any at all, or you want comments or things you just want to say to us, voicesfromthevortex@gmail.com. Send us an email. .com, and we will address any comments, questions, or concerns on our next review next week, Voices from the Vortex. So until then, this is Matt saying, have a wonderful time. Whatever you do, don't shoot at the Ice Warriors.
Don't disturb the hive. It's the same for bees, okay? If something's called a hive, leave it alone.
We'll leave it alone. Don't poke the bears that are in Ice Warrior suits.
Don't poke the upright crocodiles.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody. This has been another Voices from the Vortex review, Series 10. Starring Matthew Whitecamp as Matt the Time Lord, Taylor Davidson as Taylor the Time Lord, and Danielle Davidson as the sexy voice of the TARDIS. All views expressed are the opinions of the 2 dudes from Gallifrey, and as such should be taken extremely seriously. Follow Voices from the Vortex on all social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Subscribe to us on iTunes. If you have any questions regarding the podcast, please email us at voicesfromthevortex@gmail.com. Doctor Who and all related materials are copyright BBC, and no infringement of copyright is intended. It's heavily implied, but never intended. All material is fanfiction of a satirical nature. Please, Moffat, don't sue. We know you have a sense of humor. I mean, you did once write a Doctor Who episode with Mr. Bean. See you next time in the Vortex!
Temporal flight engaged. Returning to the vortex. End of transmission.
To the vortex!